So 2 years ago, as the Sri Lankan civil war came to an end, there was a lot of intense fighting in Sri Lanka. After that time, there has been a process of political reconstruction, but questions have remained regarding the human rights violations that were alleged to have taken place at the end of the Civil War. Seeing that the Sri Lankan government was not entirely willing or even able to have a full investigation, the Secretary General last year created an advisory panel that was tasked with producing a report on alleged human rights violations at the end of the Civil War. They've had a very tumultuous relationship with the government of Sri Lanka, which has denied this panel of experts the right to go to Sri Lanka to conduct its own investigation. This report was delivered to the Secretary General very recently, but not released to the public. Subsequently, though, it has been leaked to the press and is now making its way around the world. The Sri Lankan government has reacted very angrily to this topic and has called for mass protests in Sri Lanka against the UN and the UN report on May 1st. The panel of experts report makes serious allegations of war crimes committed by the Sri Lankan government forces at the end of the Civil War, including pushing civilians into small areas, cantonments, that were themselves bombed, the specific targeting of hospitals and other activities. It also describes very, very serious war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by the Tamil Tigers. From the perspective of the government of Sri Lanka, however, this puts a very dark cloud on what is seen as the heroic end of the Sri Lankan Civil War. Well, this is a big deal. Sri Lanka has a major problem. The first problem was the 25-year civil war, and we should all be happy that the civil war has ended and that the terrorist Tamil Tigers have been defeated. The Tamil Tigers were a terrible terrorist group that not only terrorized the Sinhalese community in Sri Lanka, they also terrorized other Tamils and Tamil moderates. So it's great news for almost everybody that the civil war is over and that the Tamil Tigers were defeated. At the same time, we have an international system for how wars should and shouldn't be pursued. And at the end of the conflict, the allegation that there were very targeted attacks on civilians is something that needs to be taken very, very seriously. And for Sri Lanka to be able to move forward together, all Sri Lankans, to realize their best potential, there has to be some kind of truth and accountability process, and only then can a true reconciliation process begin, and that is what Sri Lanka ultimately needs. There are two big issues. One is what should happen. What should happen is there should be a dialogue between the people of Sri Lanka to come to terms with Sri Lanka's terrible past. There were terrible abuses by the Tamil Tigers. There were also abuses by the government forces, and there needs to be some kind of process. And whether it's a legal process or whether it's a truth and reconciliation process like they had in South Africa, it's up to the Sri Lankans themselves to determine what's the best way. But if there isn't a process for accountability, then it's going to make the possibilities of Sri Lanka and the Sri Lankan people moving forward together extremely, extremely difficult. So the government of Sri Lanka can see this either as a threat or as an opportunity. It will certainly be better for Sri Lanka, in my view, if they see this as an opportunity. If there are things that are wrong in the report, let the government of Sri Lanka say specifically why they are wrong. But I think we should all recognize that the Civil War was a terrible, brutal experience. Wrongs were committed on all sides. Certainly the Tamil Tigers bear a very, very significant part of the blame. But there's a lot of blame to go around for everybody in Sri Lanka and in the international community. And we need to have a meaningful accountability process to lay a foundation for a meaningful reconciliation process, which can itself lay a foundation for building the kind of inclusive Sri Lanka that is in everybody's interest.